This is every journal I've filled out since September of 2021, when I first took up journaling. Collectively, the events of over 1,000 days of my life are recorded in these pages. And I have them stacked up like this because I'm trying to decide whether or not I should burn them all. But I get ahead of myself. Where to start? Albert Camus. Why not? In his essay Between Yes and No, Camus writes, "A man's work is nothing but the slow trek to rediscover through the detours of art those 2 or 3 great and simple images in whose presence his heart first opened." I would like to show you one of my 2 or 3 great and simple images. This is Passage, a 2007 game created by Jason Rohrer. Truth be told, if you've been following this channel for any length of time, this won't be the first time you've seen it. I used a short clip of it in another video, more as an in-joke to myself than anything else. But it merits a video of its own. Honestly, it merits 100 videos. I first found out about Passage on TigSource. If you're unfamiliar, TigSource used to be by far and away the premier website for everything related to indie games before Braid changed the status quo and Undertale changed it further. It hasn't been updated since 2020, but years ago I probably used to spend more time on TigSource than any website barring maybe YouTube. They never ran a feature on Passage itself, but it received a mention in a video they posted from Anthony Birch, formerly a writer at Destructoid. Honestly, I'm surprised the video is still viewable, but I'm glad it is, for giving a window both into the ways people talked about indie games back then and to a time when every other video on YouTube was called a rant. The video doesn't go into any real detail on Passage, just starting out with a brief mention.
We live in a world where Assassin's Creed, a $60 game that nobody seemed to like, gets a sequel, and where Jason Rohrer, a guy who made a free game called Passage that moved many gamers to tears, has to work for Campbell's Soup just to support his family.
But that was enough to pique my interest. These days you can play Passage in browser, but back then you had to download it. So I downloaded it and played it. Again, I find myself conflicted as to how to proceed. I could do an abridged commentary, summarizing key points of the game. I've done that before, but as will become clear, Passage isn't a game that benefits from having parts of it cut out. I could just let the game play out, sans any commentary, but I feel like that's also going against the spirit of something like this. Consider the following from the game's creator himself.
A video game doesn't even progress without input. It can't even be played to an empty theater. It just sits there. It won't even go through its sort of full linear pattern. I mean, you can imagine, some robotic arm turning the pages of a book, or a movie playing to an empty theater, or a painting just sitting there. It's still a kind of complete work. It's just there's no one looking at it at the moment. With a video game, it's like it's not even really functioning as a work at all until somebody sits down and manipulates it. So it's that makes it a very delicate kind of thing to create and design, because it's so dependent on what the person who's coming up to manipulate it is going to do.
So why even show the game at all? Why not just tell you to go play it yourself and come back once you're done? Well, speaking from experience, when a video says something like that, I usually just turn the video off, rarely look into what it tells me to look into, and even more rarely come back to the video. If you want to play Passage before proceeding, that's up to you. But I don't intend to make you. So the way I see it, that leaves one option. To play through it all with live commentary. Essentially a Let's Play. I'm a little nervous about the idea, since you've never heard me without the aid of a script. But then again, great art has a way of leaving us vulnerable. So in that spirit, here's my playthrough of Passage. Unvarnished and unscripted. Alright, welcome to episode 1 of 1 of Let's Play Passage, I guess. 2 things I want to note immediately, artistically speaking. First, of course, this very small viewing area that we have. I love that little heart that pops up as well. This very small viewing area, sort of flanked by a majority of the screen is black. I may be misremembering this, but if I recall correctly, the earliest downloaded version, this is being played in a browser and recorded from there, but if you get like the earliest downloaded version from '07, that entire little strip is the window, or at least it can be rendered that way. So this very specifically claustrophobic, I mean, it is literally a passage, right? A very specific sort of way of visualizing that is really baked into the way the game is put together, and if you play it in certain environments, baked into the way the game even runs, right? Another thing I want to note is the music. By 2007, it was not unprecedented for sort of small indie games to use chiptune, sort of 8-bit style chiptune. The way this game uses chiptune, I think, is still fairly unconventional, and would, I think, be at least a little unconventional today. Like, we sort of think of chiptune, you know, when you might have heard the story that, like, the Mega Man soundtrack, all of that music was meant to sound not like classical music, but like the rock music of the day, right? Like, Elec Man's theme from Mega Man 1 is meant to sound like the song Faithfully by Journey, stuff like that. And I guess, like, you know, there's an argument that, like, Koji Kondo, for example, did not mean to make music that sounded like rock music, that his music existed in kind of a classical idiom, but there's some debate around that, I think. But this game very much sort of takes, in a time when orchestral video game music existed, takes this kind of 8-bit musical language and applies it sort of retroactively, or applies the tech of 8-bit sort of chiptune music to a very sort of not orchestral, but like, it does not sound like classic video game music, right? Elegiac is a term I've used. Elegiac, of course, being, I think you can kind of already tell, somewhat appropriate for the tone of this game overall. Another thing I really like that I think is also still fairly special is look at the way that the different zones of this game, the different parts of this passage, of course, as you can probably tell, passage meaning both literally you're walking down a thin strip, a thin passage, but also, of course, as you can tell by the sort of very subtle ways that age shows on these very sort of limited, almost Atari 2600 style characters, the passage of time, right? I mean, the guy is balding, the woman's graying. They even, I think, I can't tell for sure, but I think they actually begin to walk in slightly different ways, even at first. And I think that's just like the very particular way that this game, on a very structural level, makes its point in a way that could only really be done in this way. You can even notice at the top right that number ticking up. I mean, what is that if not a score? A score that you get just by moving forward, right? I think having the score there, it becomes a kind of meta-commentary on score in and of itself as a concept. And it's a sort of thing that I think also types it as something that came out at a time when the argument this game makes and the design paradigm it exists in was not a done deal, right? Nowadays, making an art house game like this would be, I don't know if you would do that, right? If you would have a score to draw attention to the arbitrariness of a score. I think a lot of games that sort of hit deeper emotional through lines, I mean, I look at Celeste or something like that, that's still a game that is fundamentally a sort of high skill ceiling type game. So there are ways to get essentially score in that, and that's ultimately a game about some fairly heavy concepts. But Passage is kind of inventing a lot of language for, or at very least like innovating on and codifying a lot of video game design language. And here, regarding the score, you can go backwards, you know, you might try to do that, but if you'll notice, the score doesn't go down because you got those points, which means you put on those ears, which means you can't go back. And then, of course, eventually you stop moving forward as well. This part is a little harder for me to commentate, I think. I mean, anybody who's ever had grandparents, right, can understand the emotional significance of that, right? And so you get a little bit farther without the other person, and then, well, eventually, as you can probably imagine, you stop. So, yeah, that's Passage. I didn't have very insightful opinions about Passage back when I first played it. I was a kid, after all. But I knew it was different from anything else I had ever played. Virtua Fighter 5 was the first game I ever tried to get good at, but Passage was the first game I ever tried to understand, in the same way people try to understand paintings or books. And I wanted more. Thankfully, as I've already alluded to, and as you probably already knew to begin with, more was on the way. Much more. But in the meantime, I busied myself with searching for meaning in what was, to that point, the first place I ever thought to look for it. Of course, it would have aided my understanding if I had access to Rower's own artist statement back then. Let's give it a look. Your interpretation of this game is more important than my intentions. Please play the game before you read this. Well, that ship has sailed, but I appreciate the sentiment. A tiny bit of background about me. I turn 30 tomorrow. A close friend from our neighborhood died last month. Yep, I've been thinking about life and death a lot lately. This game is an expression of my recent thoughts and feelings. Christ, I'm pushing 30 myself now. Back here again. I still haven't explained myself very well. Why I have this urge to light the record of the last few years of my life on fire. The reason is simple. Because, collectively, they make up proof of just how little I've done in those years. If you were to turn to a random page in one of these journals, you'd see things like, I played a video game, I watched a movie, I cleaned up my ailing grandmother's shit. God, if I wrote that down every time it happened, each of my journals would be longer than the Bible. It is the largest monument to wasted time ever erected by one man. If you threw the sum total of these years into a lake, it wouldn't disturb the surface of the water. I know what some of you probably thought when I showed you this game. It's a criticism that pretty much every game like this gets from some people. Passage got it, Gone Home got it, Dear Esther got it. And that's that, say it with me now, all you do is walk around. But don't you get it? That's what makes them art, because it's what makes them truthful. All you do is walk around. All I do is walk around. I walk around, eat, sleep, and occasionally put out videos that I can't even title right. This 5-minute indie game changed my life. What kind of clickbait bullshit is that? That's not a title, that's an act of desperation from a man certain beyond all certainty that he has already fumbled in record time the one mildly successful project he's ever had. It is an act of violence against Jason Rower's entire artistic legacy, and if he decided to find out where I lived, drive over to my house, and shoot me in the fucking head over it, no jury in America would convict him. I think it's time to cut the contrivance. You've probably already guessed that I'm not going to end this video by burning my journals. If that was honestly the place I was at, I wouldn't have bothered making a video about it. I would have just done it, and then probably left this channel to rot for good measure. But why not? I've made the argument in favor of doing that convincingly enough. What's my argument against? Well, it has to do with that title again. It's accurate, but it doesn't tell the whole story. A more complete title would be This 5-Minute Indie Game Changed My Life twice. Once when I first played it, and again when I was doing the research for this video. There's a video from many years ago that shows off Passage. I didn't watch it, figuring it showed off things I had already seen. Just checked the comments to see what people were saying about Passage when it was a little newer. Some things I expected. People who liked it, people who didn't. But one comment I didn't expect. Wow, when I first played it, I didn't know you could move any other way than left and right. What? Alright, this is, I guess, part 2 of... Well, I guess part 2 of 1, I guess would be what we call it. Alright, let's give it a look. This is completely live, by the way. I have never seen this before. Alright, we're moving left and right. What happens if we try to... Oh my god! What on earth? Okay. What does that even... I guess I'm supposed to go around this stuff? I don't even know how to parse this right now. Huh, okay. Do I actually butt up against this stuff? Okay, I guess I do, so... Yeah, we're just gonna try and look for all the clear spaces. I will say, dimensionally, this is kind of weird to parse as well. Looks kind of... I'm not sure dimensionally what this is supposed to be, but let's... What? treasure. Oh, but the number went up by like a lot. So there's like actual score in this. Wait, but if the number goes up by a lot, doesn't that mean... Oh, there was nothing in that. If the number goes up by a lot, then... But we already know that the number is related to age, right? Is that not a problem? I guess we keep moving on. Are these slightly different backgrounds than previous as well, or am I just misremembering that? I think they actually are roughly the same color schemes. Wow. Legitimately, this is my first time playing this. Like, you know, you might think I'm fudging this by using some... Okay, yeah, that was another, I guess, legitimate treasure chest. Let's go around here. Yeah, I didn't really expect it to become kind of sort of a maze game. Oh no, he is like actually visibly aging every time we pick up one of the chests. Yeah. I wonder if you can go above the number that he dies at normally. That would be interesting, and we might see that here. I guess you can. At least a little bit. Okay, let's get as many of these as we can. Oh, did that send us back? I can't tell. The numbers are a little small. Okay. That's really interesting. The scrolling is a little weirder when you have sort of the top-down view, but that's okay. I feel like they had to hide it visually somewhat. Oh, nope, we are getting older. Okay. All right. This feels like a totally different area, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. See if we can go through. I wonder if there is, like, actually an ending here. I doubt I'll find it here. Which I guess might be an invitation for you to give it a look yourself, right? Oh, stuck. You know. Figure out if there's anything that you find that I wouldn't be able to find, maybe. That could be kind of interesting. I didn't even realize that was on in the cards when I was trying to figure this out initially. All right. Keep going, keep going. There's that, but that's another false chest. The symbolism of this, I think, is also maybe a little bit more complex, you know. But obviously still related to the whole Memento Mori theme, right? But yeah, we are still getting older. But we would have been dead a lot longer before. And I think we would have definitely started slowing down. Oh, in the 900s. We got so many more points when we didn't fall in love. That's probably not commentary on anything, is it? I mean, it's definitely not literally just commentary on that. I think Roar in real life is married, so I can't imagine. I can't imagine that would be the point, right? But let's keep going. Oh wow. Yeah, I'm just gonna ignore that one. I can't really reach it. The maze actually seems to get more complicated the farther you go. I wonder. I assume at 1,000 is kind of when it ends in this setup. So we'll see. 6. Oh no. Oh no. The narrow field of view does kind of make it a little harder. No, it's going. It's still clicking. Huh. Okay. Do do do. You know, the music actually doesn't sound as sad in this content. Oh. Well. That's the final score, I guess. 1,015. I wonder if it just arbitrarily stops there. But maybe you can try to beat my high score. Maybe we'll put a leaderboard for this, and yeah, we're probably not doing that. But yeah, that was genuinely interesting, and kind of makes the similar point in a very different way. I'm glad I played through this. And yeah, that was 100% blind. Wow. That's really cool. I had spent 15 years thinking that Passage was a game on rails. that neither me nor anyone else who played it ever had a choice in how it ended. Turns out I was wrong. I wonder how many other times I've been wrong like that.